Okay, we're recording. I'm glad to see everybody showing up. We've got about 9 to 10 people here, and we'll get going. So welcome to the virtual program, Little and Big Escapes, Camping and Hiking. I hope to cover some of the resources the library has and some free resources out there that will help you discover places to hike, some hiking opportunities, some group hiking opportunities with people, and possibly some camping opportunities as well. All right. Well, I'd like to introduce myself. I introduced myself earlier, but my name is John Muir, and I'm a reference specialist with the reference department. We're located at the, and misspelled my name. My name is Muhrar. And so that would be, I'm not the John Muir. That would be a very interesting person to give a presentation about hiking. Um, so just a little bit of, once again, a little bit about me. I'm a reference specialist at headquarters at the St. Louis County Library there at 1640 South Lindbergh, and we'll be there for a little bit longer. What we do in the department, we kind of present and assist people with using the databases in that are provided through the library. The databases and some of the ebooks. Some of that service is provided through our training department, and some of the services we provide. Just go ahead and feel free to give us a call. Give the library a call at 314-994-3300, and just ask for us or anything like that if you need help using some of the databases that I'll be presenting and some of the other resources that I might be presenting today. So I want to know just a little bit about you, about what kind of brings you here, what piqued your interest in the in this program. So I'm going to go and post a poll up, and hopefully you'll have time to take that. And we'll go and launch that poll. So the first poll is how often do you go hiking or participate in any wilderness recreational activity? By wilderness recreational activity, I mean, I basically mean hiking, camping, canoeing, maybe you do rock climbing or anything like that. Go and place your answer in. I'd like to see it. If you don't see the poll, please tell me in the chat. You should be seeing the poll. And then there should be a second option in the poll there. So I'm seeing once a week, spring and fall once a week. I see how often. So 3 times. I'm guessing that's three times a week, or is that 3 times a month here, or just 3 times at all? Um, Some versions of Zoom don't. The poll don't show up. Don't worry about it. You can add it in chat. People hike locally, and I see some people. Some people. Let's see here, the details. All right, so that was our first one. All right, twice a week. Oh, that's often. I wish I could do it that often. Oftentimes when I go camping, so I go hiking. I used to hike about once a week. I've had some children be born recently, and that's been kind of narrowed down to about once a month. And since I have some crawlers and toddlers at home, I'm going in that poll. So we'll share this result. Right, and then where to? Do you go? Where do you go hiking to? I'm interested. Some people say they like to hike locally. I usually, when I do the once a week or once a month hiking, I do that locally. But when I travel, I almost always find a place to hike, and that's some of the resources I'm going to show you. So as you travel abroad, um, just finding the places. Babbler State Park. I actually live out here in Wildwood, and Babbler State Park is just about an 8-minute drive from me here. Where's your favorite place to hike? One of my favorite places is St. Francis State Park. I also like Don Robinson State Park. It's a nearby one. It's a brand new one that's opened up, and I quite enjoy that park. County parks, I see. Yeah, some people here. St. Louis County Parks has some wonderful hiking trails, kind of mixed in with some county parks and some trails on asphalt, some nice trails that are very accessible to do. It's a great place to start if you live here in St. Louis County. Different areas around Missouri, and we'll cover some great resources that we can find those kind of hidden trails. I'm going to go and wrap up the poll here. I'll share the result for a second. All right. So thank you for your responses. It's nice to see. I always like to get a little bit of participation in here at the beginning. It's a little bit harder over Zoom meetings. We can't just kind of have a conversation. Yeah. Move on to some important things about hiking. You'll find in a lot of the resources I point out about hiking and how to prepare for hikes, and also about camping, and especially in backcountry options, is kind of a front forward focus on safety and health. I want to just kind of put that out here. If you haven't hiked before or done any sort of camping before, so I always like to put safety first. Always kind of be prepared. I was a Cub Scout and a Boy Scout, and that's kind of, as you heard, that's one of the mottos. So one of the key things is to begin by checking weather and trail conditions. A lot of places will post trail conditions online. You can also check weather using resources such as Weather Underground or weather.gov is a real good resource to use. You can actually get down and go down to the zip code level to search for your options, so your forecasts. And it's always good to check well ahead of time, and then to kind of check that day of. One of the keys I always like to do is just to tell somebody where I'm going right ahead. So checking in with people, whether it be a friend or a family member, tell them, hey, I'm going hiking on Tuesday at 3 o'clock, and I plan to go to, I mentioned St. Francis State Park. I'm planning on going to St. Francis State Park to hike on a particular trail. And then that way people let you know if you don't check in. Should the worst happen, they can begin to know where to find you. That's always key. And this is even especially key to put in an itinerary with somebody. And even if you're doing something backcountry where you're hiking or doing backpacking over several days, it's real important that you leave an itinerary there. And particularly backcountry hiking and a lot of federal lands and state lands, you do have to get a permit and register, whether it be a firm itinerary or a loose itinerary, as to where you're going, saying about how far you're going to camp every day and about where you're going to be camping and setting up camp at, whether they be named campgrounds or if it's going to be a full backcountry campground. So also preparing for the heat and the cold, and not getting wet and staying dry. So finding clothes that don't hold moisture too much, finding clothes that keep the sun off you. That I know you kind of you're always trying to strike a balance when you dress, that you want to wear long sleeves to help protect from the sun, but also sometimes long sleeves can heat you up. So you want to find that perfect kind of balance of clothing that's going to keep you a comfortable temperature that doesn't get you too cold. Also check in and see what kind of reports you have. I'll show us areas where we can see if a trails has a lot of shade or if it has a lot of sun. There's a few trails I go on They're off through meadows that you can get a lot of sun exposure, and that can really change a that can change a 72-degree day to feel like a 90-degree day, especially when you have a 25, 30-pound pack on your back. That can, or in my case right now, a 25 to 30-pound child on your back. And I mentioned that the sun protection, so you want sunscreen, which is something you should apply as the instructions on the sunscreen state, and also bring along some extra shade. So in case you sweat off your sunscreen, you do have that shade and that extra protection that kind of covers you up. That can sunburn might be the thing that might ruin, especially a trip where you're out for several days. Um, I a little story with some protection. I had gone canoeing. This is up in Montana for several days, and I was wearing shorts, and I had applied all the sunscreen on the first day when I was out there on the shorts that went down to my knees, and I applied it a little bit on my knees. But when I sat down to canoe, my shorts hiked up to have a little bit of my leg where my sunscreen wasn't applied, and I did get a little stripe of burn on the top of my legs on that day. So it's something to consider that your position to kind of over apply that sunscreen and apply it to multiple places. Carrying insect repellent, so protecting yourself from ticks and mosquitoes and other kinds of buzzy things. In the area around here in Missouri, we don't have issues with flies, but in certain areas, such as hiking in like northern Michigan or hiking in northern Minnesota, you might encounter issues with instances of black flies and such. And so you want to carry that protection with you. And even more so, protection from animals. Looking forward, it's a thing we don't necessarily have to worry about currently in Missouri as much, but you should always follow the signage there. The trail you're on is to perhaps even prepare for larger animals such as mountain lions and bears, particularly when hiking in the Mountain West. There's a lot of concern with that, and going through that process of doing that. A lot of these hiking books and a lot of the hiking areas will give you guidance on that. One of the keys, this is really key, is water, water, water. Always have more than enough water with you. One of the issues with water is that it does carry weight. So if you're going over if you're going on like a backcountry area, always have your water prepared, but always have ways that you can begin to filter and clean your water, such as heat, obviously the filters, and then the boiling process to get your water to standards, and check with current, with regional standards for getting the water to be potable, and how you should obtain your water. There are areas where you may not want to obtain your water from because filtering and boiling may not protect against certain minerals or dangerous minerals that might be in the water. And so you'll want to check locally with that, the local hiking thing, whether it be the national park or wherever you might want to hike, wherever you're hiking in. As you get to the hiking place, making sure you stretch and warm up. I always, since a lot of my hikes are oftentimes a lot of my hikes locally or regionally, there's an hour drive to them, such as St. Francis State Park or down by maybe Hahn State Park. There, you're sitting in a car for an hour, and your muscles start to tense up, and you're not stretched out and ready for a hike. So you're not warmed up. You're sitting in air conditioning for that hour, sitting in your car in bad posture on your wheel. So you do want to stretch out a little bit before you go. Footwear, you want to get sturdy yet appropriate footwear. And I go back up to being comfortable with that hot and cold option. You'll want to check out those trail conditions ahead of time, and I will show you the ways that you can see what you can encounter on the trail, how intense those trails are, whether you're crossing water, walking through water, um, how sturdy those shoes are, because those big heavy hiking boots may be good on a dry hike where you're hiking, you've got really solid ankle protection, but you may be crossing a creek multiple times where you will have to go through that creek in those heavy hiking boots. May not be the best footwear to wear on that trip. or having footwear to change in and out of. They may be good. You may want to carry them, and then an option to change out of those if you're going in and out of a creek or walking through other sorts of landscapes. Always consider carrying an appropriate first aid kit for your trip. Even if it's a short hike, you may encounter bumps or bruises, and having a way to go out. Of course, if you're in a nearby hike, having your phone with you is always going to be key. It's kind of a game changer in the last 20 years or so, being able to get cell phone signals in the backcountry. It's been quite the game changer for me. I got lost once and I was able to use my maps. I just barely had a signal, but I was able to use maps to locate back to where I needed to be, which was a very good option. Knowing your allergies and knowing regional allergies, particularly airborne allergies, and also things you touch, such as poison ivy or poison oak, but also you might have a particular allergy that might be reacting to, that's not a common sort of reaction like people get with poison ivy, but something that might be a little bit more unique to yourself, that might be something that affects you on your trip. Does anybody have any questions or any comments to add into the safety and health, something I may have missed? All right, we're going to move on to sort of a more of an intangible thing. That's trail and campsite etiquette. We always like to go in when we go hiking, like to see nature in its kind of best form, in its kind of cleanest form. And so one of the key things is to always keep it clean, and this means to pack in what you need and pack out your trash. So there's kind of a movement to kind of harvest. That might be something you might want to focus on private land. But since what I'm mostly focused on is recreation on public lands, you'll want to pack in your own food and pack out your own food. So that wild harvesting and such may not be as desirable for you. So you also want to leave no trace. This kind of all goes in together. So you don't want to walk too far off the trail, and this is something on Trail Focus. You want to stay focused on the trail, and this is also a safety thing with Trail Focus, is in certain options you can quickly get lost by veering off the trail. You can also quickly, in certain especially fragile areas such as the desert, I've gone hiking out in West Texas and out in Arizona, and other options where it's open, hot hiking conditions and backcountry conditions on that, but also those are very super fragile environments. Hiking in West Texas, particularly in Big Bend National Park, it's said that some of these stones that are out there, they have their own ecosystems within them, and if you even move the stone, you can just disturb that small ecosystem, that area that a animal or some sort of lichen has established itself, and just by walking by it, you've disturbed that, and you've begun to upset the balance of that ecosystem. So even just staying to the trail in those type of areas can become real important. One of the options, one of the things you could carry with you when you hike on a trail or when you're using public lands, is just remember, kind of look into the history of these public lands, the shared public lands. Why was the state park established? Where did this land come from? Who had come here before? Some of the options, some of the distinct things the library has is using databases to do historical research on locations of first peoples in America and in North America, to see who's been there before, where that land came from. You might also find a plaque there. I have the I always say plaques aren't boring. You can always read the plaque and you can find out where you go. They always read the plaque as comes from somebody else. And let's see. Always read the plaque. So it is a podcast to listen to called 99% Invisible, which states that you should always read the plaque. There are always so many interesting things you can find. And reading the plaque, I found out, this is from a canoeing trip from reading the plaque. Along the Missouri River, there are up in Montana, which is a place I canoed. I spent 7 days on the river up there, and there are plaques, little stands that tell you where Lewis and Clark camped on a particular night. And on a particular night, as we were coming up to a place, we said, "This looks like a great campground." So we pulled off on the edge of the Missouri to set up our camp, and we looked, and on that sign was an identifier that on that same day, it was April 25th, I believe, in 1804. So it was 197 years before we were there. Lewis and Clark had camped in that same spot. So we were experiencing a very historical kind of place and time for that. And then there's general etiquette. It's options like we can look at smiling at other hikers and communicating trail issues. Sort of a thing I always like that people point out is a certain kind of wildlife that that you might encounter in the trail. Like I said before, a bear in the trail ahead, a washout in the trail, an area that you might worry about, that somebody might be worried about. Somebody might say, "Hey, we had to turn around because the trail was washed out because of a flood that happened, or there was a bridge that you were expecting that you were going to cross, that you had prepared for with, as I say, with those shoes that you would come in with just your hiking boots, and now you want to communicate that to other trail users." So they have a kind of hiking and camping etiquette that they focus on when they go out. Let me move on to the next slide. So I just want to point out some of the benefits of wilderness and wilderness physical activities. And a lot of these are pointed out by these research things here. So we'll start by pointing out what the National Park Service says about the benefits of hiking. Obviously, hiking is a physical activity, and it does put maybe a normal, more than normal strain in your body if you typically have a desk job or not moving that much. So you get out, you get to move, you build stronger bones and muscles, which any kind of physical activity does. The mental health, you do get a mental health boost by being out in nature. I want to point to that Stanford University study in a second. There was a study that they had people walk in an urban environment for a certain place, and then they walked and other people walked in a wilderness environment, so walking on a hiking trail. And as they were out there, they found that the people on the hiking trail received better health benefits overall than the people on the than the individuals on the than walking in the urban environment, so walking around on sidewalks and such. It's quite the interesting one. So this is the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences have a paper and about how getting out and doing and participating in wilderness activities has a difference than simply going out for a walk. A long research study. And the National Park Service pointed to the Stanford University study, which is kind of made publicly accessible. So once again, the nature and urban settings. Key into some other instances of National Institutes of Health, National Library of Medicine has hiking as a low-cost, accessible intervention to promote health benefits. You could walk on a treadmill. That's fine. That gets your heart moving and your lungs going and you're breathing and puts that excitement into your muscles. But it really attaches into an overall health benefit. Hiking does. So we see that some of the health benefits that they point out here: decreased blood pressure, decreased stress levels, enhanced immune system functioning, restored attention. And then weight loss, decreased depression, and overall wellness. So it's amazing, a low cost kind of maintenance opportunity for you and for anybody. And once again, because health shouldn't be limited to certain groups, I always, I've been really tuned into this of late and woken up to this by saying hiking is for everyone and every day is possible. Of course, you always want to check that weather, but any day is a possible day to hike. Don't let weather keep you away. So let's look at a couple options. There are some. So what we see in a lot of hiking magazines, or what we've seen over the last, let's say, 50 years, is a focus on a certain type of hiker, and a certain type of hiker oftentimes looks like me. I'm a white man, and a lot of the way hiking's been promoted is they've shown white middle-aged men, but hiking is available to everybody out there. It's and while local organization that you may want to tap into is a organization called Black People Who Hike, and this is a local organization. They do lots of hiking in the area, and it was founded just a little bit ago by a local woman. So you can investigate this, and you can begin to connect to people. If as an individual you might not be interested in hiking, I'm a person who I've always loved my solo hikes. You might want to use this as a way to hook up if that interests you. And there are so many other organizations out there that also do this on a national level. So if you're visiting other places, Outdoor Afro is one. That offers outdoor adventuring to either connecting or just ways to get connected with other types of hiking. It's not just hiking. They obviously connect with swimming, fishing, kayaking, other opportunities here. Vibe Tribe Adventures, Brown People Camping, Melanin Base Camp. These are all organizations that are out there. Wild Diversity. And American Hiking has a statement on how to combat racism in kind of baked into some of the hiking world, and some of these organizations I'll point out there as well. Oh, don't want to go there. And hiking is for everyone. We can also look at lifetime hikers, and we mentioned the benefits of hiking. So these are people that may have age on, maybe focused at, and looking to ways to bring physical activity in their life. And so with lifetime hikers, we want to look at things such as fitness. Are you available? Are you fit enough to go hiking? Strong enough? Sometimes hiking certain trails are strenuous, so you can always test out trails locally with that too, and figure out if you are fit enough. And of course, you always want to check in with your physician if you are strong enough to hike. This kind of goes across with everybody. Focusing on pace. Remember, it's always the journey and not the destination. So it's always key to know what your pace is. Your pace may slow down through age. My pace certainly has. And I remember when I was a teenager hiking with my dad, I was quite the mobile individual. I was always hiking ahead and taking my rests on that. So, and he wasn't even, he was my age when I was a teenager. So, yeah, there's always a speed there. There's options, people with diverse abilities. So individuals that maybe have wheelchairs, and maybe trying to find wheelchair accessible trails. There are some wheelchair accessible trails out here. This Trail Link, Rails to Trails Conservancy, points out some opportunities for trails, because many of the trails that I point out in the resources are not always the accessible trails, although I'm going to show you how to search for those if that's something that you may need. But you can see there's wheelchair accessible trails across states. And so this resource ties into that. Other options for those people who use wheelchairs for mobility. Outside Magazine has a article about the 25 best accessible trails in America. And some of these you might not even expect. So some pretty amazing trails out there. There are individuals, low vision individuals. American Foundation for the Blind has option take a hike and join hiking after vision loss. Ways that you can go about doing that. Directory of services, looking for hiking paths in the area. So this is the American Foundation for the Blind, and they have a blog on that about taking hikes. And there's a gentleman, I believe it's the Pacific Crest Trail that he hiked. He was a blind individual who had a service dog, and he went hiking himself, a legally blind individual. And he actually did what's called an ultralight hike, ultralight backpacking, which is a ways to go lighter. So he kind of did an extra thing on there. You can see he has a service dog with him, and we'll get into hiking with dogs later as well. But this is a particular type of thing. And so there's also about, this kind of goes back to trail etiquette, about ran the service animals on the trail, and using types of language on the trail, such as trying to avoid common phrases, or trying to work with common phrases that might be ableist in their presentation. And finding people, and remember the service animal is part of the person, and so it's always making the request to the person about interacting with the dog. And the Forest Service, the U.S. Forest Service, this is more so for people providing services in the wilderness, but they do have some tips on providing this accessibility guidebook for outdoor recreation and trails, things to look for in and on trails for people that have diverse ability. All right, I'm going to start pointing out some resources that the library has, such as books, and some of the databases we have to find some of our available topographic maps and such. Is there any are there any resources you all use currently to find new trails, or to discover history of trails, or what do you use to prepare for any of your hikes? Go ahead and leave that in the chat while I'm here. I'm going to say what resources I use, and a lot of the resources are right here. There are some excellent books out there for you. I'm going to get a sip of water while we do. If you have any options, just go and leave that in the chat. I'm going to make a noisy sip of water here. I see the app All Trails. I'm going to point that out a little bit too. It's a socially accessible. It's like a social user app, a social media type of app specifically for trails. You just go to the local community parks and see what's there. Excellent. That's a great thing too. That's right around the corner. That's always there. So I'm going to point out some basic information on camping and hiking. This is going to be some basic things. I always like to say, let's go and start with the catalog. It's what Falcon Guides. That's good. You'll see we have option to Falcon Guides here in our ebooks. So you'll see Falcon Guides for not just for stuff in the St. Louis area, but you'll see some regional stuff and some resources you may not have known about that might not be as easily accessible. Because I know a lot of people, when you go into the library, I think it's the catalog and it's a book, but we have databases, we have ebook resources that really come in handy. So let's go and look at first few books, and we have a new catalog. If you all don't know, it's been keeping us busy for this week. To use the catalog, you can do a search for, and I have a link right to the subject backpacking as a topic in the catalog. So here's this here. You can see backpacking is this here. But let's go and look at another subject. I'm going to type in hiking. I don't know if you all see this in the upper right-hand corner, where it has a subject search or just a general keyword search for hiking. Hiking, and that gets us here. And this is just hiking. This first one is a teen book. We can begin to scroll down. We can see a lot more hiking options here. So here's a book, Hiking in Missouri. This is going to cover trails and options. So if we just click on, it's going to be just a little bit of the catalog use. If we click on the title of the book, or just on the title of the book, we're going to see some details about the book here, the locations that it's at, some of the details here. the person's mentioned, and we're going to see all the topics kind of built into it. It covers natural resources and such, and some other related options. So here's other topics. So we can see if we click on all 6 topics, we'll see options here, Missouri guidebooks. So here's another one, hiking Missouri guidebooks. There we are. We can click on that, and that's going to give us more books that have trails in Missouri. And you mentioned Falcon Guides. Here we are, best easy day hikes Missouri Ozarks. So we see it's a Falcon Guide. We can click on that, and that's going to bring us around to our Falcon Guides, which we can place a hold on. There's one available at our headquarters branch there, where I'm not at right now, but where I am, where my offices are at. We have 50 hikes in Ozarks and some other related resources. Once again, we can begin to spin out, and you'll see me do this a couple times. I like to repeat how this works. You can see all 5 topics. So it has other related topics. So here's Ozark Mountain Guidebooks and such. And then another book I like to put out, Ultimate Hiker's Gear Guides. This is Tools and Techniques to Hit the Trail. It was published in 2017, we see here. Real quick Amazon.com thing, but you can also look at the details and see a lot more about that, about the author, about other similar books. For that, here's a Backpacker's Field Manual. You can click on that, you click on the title, and that brings you to that thing. So you can really begin to explore the catalog for these. So I'm going to point out some ebooks. The Ultimate Guide to Hiking, which will be in our Overdrive app. Has anybody here used Overdrive, or you probably use it more popularly on your mobile device, on your phone, with an app called Libby, or your tablet with an app called Libby. I see somebody mentioned that they use Libby. So the way Libby works, it works a little bit more as a traditional book. When you check out a book, there's a certain amount of copies available, as you see here. And when you check out a copy, the library has so many copies it can lend. And so it can lend, for this particular book, it can lend 2 copies at a time. So for instance, here you could place a hold on this book and get that ready for you when it comes around. You can read how to pack, how to set up a campsite, how to interact safely with wildlife, some details on the book. You can also see some similar books here. You can see the on the right-hand side, the subjects it's in, sports and recreations. But if you go to sports and recreations, one of the things I'm not a fan of with Overdrive is it has pretty broad subject categories. Sports and recreation is pretty broad. So you can see there's books on basketball and all other kinds of things. So if we're focused on hiking or backpacking, we might just want to use the search option here. And there we go, backpacking. And of course, there's magazines to keep track of that too. Hike Smart. Has anybody used Hoopla to borrow any books? Or you probably are familiar mostly with Hoopla. I know a lot of people use it for things, but many people use Hoopla to watch movies and to watch TV shows. But one of the things I discovered, it is a wonderful, wonderful resource for pulling out hiking books and guides. One of the main reason is you get 10 checkouts a month with this, and those titles are always available to you. So as long as you have a checkout left, the title will be available for you and you can check it out. And they have a better subject for me. Excellent. You just learned about it today and signed up today. Here we go. Here's some great books you can check out. I hope you don't use all your 10, but if you want to, you can use it. We're coming up to the end of the month, so you have a week left to use your 10. So it's actually a good time to check out some books. But here's an option, tips and tactics for improving your treks. And then they even have a one where you can break out sports and recreation hiking, and you can see there's like hiking memoirs. This really just have me sports and recreation because I just clicked on the sports and recreation option. Let's click on the hiking option. There we are. See lots of hiking options here. And we'll get back to how these like specific trail hikes here would show up. Close out that Overdrive. So not only can you use that to search for hiking, but you can begin to use the subject guides in there. So when you find a book that interests you, is kind of in your scope, here's like destination hikes, you can use these subject guides to kind of pull yourself out. So here's Travel Canada, Western Provinces. So if you go hiking in British Columbia, or possibly even that might even count places near in Alberta and whatnot, that's an option for you too. Let's see, Ultimate. So there's more options in Hoopla, Ultimate Hiker's Gear Guide. The excellent thing about Hoopla is a lot of times if a new edition comes out, that new edition will show up in Hoopla sometimes faster than you might find it there. That's all Hoopla. Yeah. So another one, a database I look at is going to be this master file premiere. I'm going to show you how to get to that. Master File Premiere is a database we have that kind of looks at past magazine articles. I won't give you fresh magazines like Overdrive does, but in our research, if you go to resource, if you visit the website and you go to research, all of our resources for online resources are databases, effectively, that we call them, but sometimes they're not specifically databases, but we call them resource or databases. We do use those interchangeably, but our resources are listed here A to Z. So what I wanted to point out was a master file, Premiere, and if we click on just the name of the database, it'll probably ask me to log in. Nope, it has me logged in. And it's going to have me looking for, I'm going to look for backpacking. It's going to look at past magazines. So it actually has Backpacking 101 from an article in Backpacker in February 2021. So a recent article on that. You can actually, if you want to click on the PDF full text, it's going to bring up an article from Backpacker magazine. And you can actually access this database from home. So when we get done here, you can go to Master File Premiere. It's going to load up this full page, full color, full page option on Backpacking 101. So we mentioned stretches. It even has some stretches, some fitness warm-ups that you can do here when it's cooler or raining for you to kind of go through. Options how to stay found, how to leave your mark or not leave your mark, some quick options for first aid, and some real awesome articles on camping. You can go back, and from backpacking, there is a lot of information here. So an article from Boy's Life, an article about backpacking, article about backpacking in the Transylvanian Alps. So you can even kind of review where might be great places to backpack. So yeah, including New York State Conservationist, backpacking across Western New York. So some awesome ones here for you. So Master File Premiere is an awesome database I like to use. Like to look at for kind of past magazine articles. It'll search through that. Whereas if you're looking at like subscribing to a magazine or want to see the current option, Overdrive and Libby is good for subscribing to magazines as they currently come out. But if you want to get like kind of do that research option, Master File Premiere is really set up for research. I regularly hike with my dog. I hike with toddlers now, so I like to bring up and talk about hiking with dogs. So some special consideration to kind of adds complexity to your hike. I don't know if does anybody go hiking with dogs here? I like hiking with my dog. he enjoys it too, I think. Special considerations, you want to check if dogs are allowed on trails. There are some trails and some national parks where dogs aren't allowed. And there are some places where dogs are allowed, but bringing a dog can add some danger to your hike, particularly when there's presence of bears and other kind of wildlife. That's a special consideration you want to add in. Making sure your dog has access to water is real key. Bring along that travel bowl. Making sure your dog is leashed. Having some, there's special etiquette. So cleaning up after your dog, keeping a no trace. And then you always want to make sure to check in with your vet if your dog's healthy enough to hike. So if you maybe have a senior dog or a dog that may have some outstanding health conditions, check with that. You also want to check about making sure they're up to date on their worm, and taking certain special vaccines and care for your dog, because especially if there's like streams and such, there are pathogens that are out there that are in the wild that are carried in streams that sometimes dogs aren't normally vaccinated for if they're not regularly outdoor dogs. So if your dog is an outdoor kind of wilderness dog, you may want to go back. If you haven't gone hiking with your dog or haven't brought it up with your vet about hiking with your dog, especially if you're crossing streams, that you may want to bring up with your vet. Say, hey, I'm interested in hiking with my dog. Is there anything special I need to do? And your vet will help you out with that. So EBSCO ebooks is something I haven't pointed out yet, but I'll show you this EBSCO ebooks, keyword search hiking with dogs. And it wants me to log in. Of course it does. And I knew it would do that. But the good thing is if you go to the St. Louis County Library webpage and our books, e-media and more section, EBSCO ebooks is here in the e-media section. And the EBSCO ebooks is right here. So if we just look hiking with dogs, is that what I want to do? In EBSCO ebook and EBSCO ebooks, it's going to be ebooks that are available for you to check out. So here's one: best dog hikes in Colorado. Dog hiker, great hikes with dogs from the Adirondacks to the Catskills. So, and some other options down here. So it's a pretty fun database to look at. And you can bring it out as a PDF full text, or you can bring it as an EPUB, whatever your option is, and a full download. So here's another Hoopla one. If you do hiking with dogs, here's day hikes with dogs in Western Montana. If you are going for a destination type of hike. One of the options is 60 hikes with 60 miles, which is on our catalog, but it's also in Hoopla. And I'll bring back up this this resource again, so you can see there's 60 hikes and 60 miles all around, and they have a special carve out for you for hikes with dogs. And it's not prioritizing St. Louis, but we can add that as an option. Oh, St. Louis is going to be your one here. Your books that you can check out from the library. And if you click on the book itself, there's actually a series, part of the 60 hikes and 60 miles, and so you can narrow it down to that. So if you're traveling a lot, or if you're in a place, let's say you have a business meeting in Albuquerque, and you don't know you're there, you can use your Hoopla app when you're in Albuquerque, if you have checkouts left, and check out your Albuquerque one when you have that spare day. Or if you have, like I did one day, you have a layover in the Phoenix area, you can use it as well and go on a hike in Phoenix, where I had when it was a snowstorm here. I was coming back from Los Angeles and was stuck in Phoenix for 48 hours. So it's also Love Dogs Must Travel, and this is also a catalog item. Best in Missouri, so this is an interesting one. It's mostly just kind of regional travel for you. And this Love Dog have travels, and there's 0 holds on 7 copies, and it looks like they're all available right now. So I expect that I will go back and see that this is all checked out in a few days. Does anybody have any questions or comments about hiking with dogs? All right. Difficult in backcountry. I don't know if anybody's interested in this. Seems like everybody's kind of doing regional stuff. The resource I really want to point out is A to Z Maps, online topographic maps. And this may be an interesting thing to carry with you, depending on how much printing you may want to do or downloading to a device. So an A to Z Maps online has a wealth of resources for historical maps, and I mentioned about that, getting the history of the land. But there is an access to the U.S. Geological Survey of topographic maps. The U.S. Geographic Survey maps. You can begin to break that down, and there are highly detailed topographic maps that you can search out by township. And you can view the map, and it has highly detailed topographic maps, especially if you're going off trail and backcountry in certain wilderness areas. Because you want to check if off trail and backcountry is allowed in the area with the administrative authority of that area. You can see even a campground laid out right here on this one. So that's a resource you can use. Just use your library card from home and you can sign up and you can download those maps. All right, finding trails and campsites. I pointed out a lot of the books you can do, and you can find that in the Finding Trails, Hoopla, and then EBSCO. And the options. So in EBSCO ebooks is the special interest hikes and walks. There's hiking high desert, backpacking California. There are a wealth of regional hiking books in EBSCO ebooks as well as in Overdrive. And as I pointed out before, Hoopla has that 60 hikes and 60 miles option. Of course, there's always the catalog. And then the e-magazines in Overdrive and Libby, we have Backpacker magazine in there. The Great Outdoors, this is a UK magazine, so it might not be as kind of focused on Europe and hiking in Europe, but if you ever happen to go there, this might be a really great resource for you for going through that. And general books on hiking and traveling, or traveling even by foot here. Has anybody used recreation.gov? This is a great place to register for permits, for backcountry permits, for passes, entries into National Park Services, and to find camping and lodging. So one of the options, so if you're looking for camping options, if we want to do so one of the things I discovered by using this is you can actually search for cabins in far off national forests, old fire lookout towers, if you're planning a trip. And you can spend a night in old fire lookout towers by using this, or book a night and spend the night out in old fire lookout towers out west. And there's a few up north and then the northeast. Really interesting resource. Of course, it's not just limited to just old lookout towers. You can find your standard campgrounds and cabins as you want. You can also, if you just want to look at trail, it's mostly, so they have got articles here, but you can also look for trails around the area, and it's going to be geolocated. So it has trails geolocated to where we are here. We'll use hiking. Yeah. Wow. It's going to be worth a look at permits for backcountry permits. So here's hiking permits for the Great Smoky Mountains, watercraft permits for areas down in Oklahoma. There's going to be all types of permits, and some of these are going to be on lands where there is firearm use, so you'll be able to, if you have that, use firearm use, Alaska and whatnot. But yeah, so this is where you want to go for any federally administered lands. That includes Corps of Engineers, Forest Service, National Park Service, and such. But let's go beyond federal service lands, and let's look at some of the Missouri trails. People mentioned about hiking here. So in hiking, there's detail in Missouri State Parks. There's a hiking subsection. Missouri State Parks / activity / hiking offers just a rundown of that, some popular trails, and then some detailed trail information. So we go here to detailed trail information. We can zoom in and we can begin to see some of the trails, and we can also filter the type of trails. So should find that. Is that working for me? Oh, shucks. It was working earlier It is a map that works. There are trails to click on. There we are. So you'll see the trails laid out, and you'll be able to click on them and see wilderness areas and such. There we go. Now it's populating. It's just a little slow internet connection here with everything that's going on. But the Missouri State Park offer trails. Now that's not just the limit of trails, and people mentioned the county trails as well. The Missouri Department of Conservation has trails. So places like Rockwoods Reservation kind of key in with that too. So they have trails here in areas, great places for hiking. Oh. So here you have trails laid out in the St. Louis area. And in the August Beckmeyer area, and all types of trails here. So you can pull out what's in St. Louis County if you just want to stay local. And find conservation areas as well, which is going to offer you camping and other options here. So here's the Missouri State Parks Trail app. And I said St. Francis State Park. So I like to go on the Mooners Holler Trail occasionally, and this is going to bring up options for that here. As that downloads, it's going to tell me the length of the trail, its rating. I can click on the trail details, and this will pull up. It'll show me the elevation of the trail, where the trailhead is. So it's going to give me some GPS. I can plug in to find where the trailhead is, and it's going to give me hiking time, GPS coordinates, what I'll experience on a trail, and other options like that. And it will tell me if I'm going in wild areas or anything like that, and what's permitted there. There's sort of different layers of what you have here. We also have Illinois trails to find. So the Illinois Department of Natural Resources has trails, and they have it broken down by regions. So it works a little bit different than I like the Missouri app a lot better. I just kind of look on the map, and that loads up. So this took me a while to load up earlier, but they'll have all the trails out there. So if you're interested in just across the river, Horseshoe Lake State Park, and that's working, does it? There we are. So some information on Pere Marquette State Park. There's camping, hiking trails, and such. All right. Does anybody have any questions about this? We have all trails, which somebody mentioned before, and yeah. So here, so for instance, all trails, it's located. It knows where I am out here. Like I say, I'm out in Wildwood, and I typed in Castlewood State Park. So these are user rated options, and so you'll have like your starred reviews, just like you would on something like a Yelp or anything like that. That's going to have that right here. And then they've got print map. Of course, there's this is a free resource, but then there's scale that you pay different subscription rates to. So yeah. So if you have any other questions, always give us a call. I'm going to show us our last slide as we end out here. Give us a call at the library, or you can text us, email us, or chat us if you like. So, okay. All right. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time. Yeah, so once again, those e-resources are very useful. Thank you very much, and you all have a wonderful evening and happy hiking.